This is Joe Matarese. I got problems, and they need fixing.
I'm afraid, all right?
You're going to have to go through hell. Worse than any nightmare that you ever dreamed.
If I can change, and you can change, everybody can change.
You're listening to Fixing Joe. Every week, I'm going to bring my real-life problem to this podcast. My friends, my listeners, my guests, my family, they're all going to help me. And trust me, I need it. I got tons of problems. I'm anxious. I have OCD. I have ADD. I'm narcissistic. I'm insecure. I got anger out the ass. And all of these things come together to ruin my life all the time. I'm hoping this show can help. You're listening to Fixing Joe. Let's thank WildfireRadio.com right at the top here. They make me go live every week. And we're doing another one live tomorrow night. So let's start with that plug. If you want to listen to me again tomorrow night, should be really exciting because I will be doing the podcast from the Stress Factory in New Brunswick, New Jersey at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We will be going live. What we do is we do like a short stand-up show before. I don't air that. I know you're going, why don't you air the stand-up? No, I can't air people's stand-up on a podcast. It's not fair to comedians to do that. So we don't air the stand-up, but it gets the crowd kind of used to who the guest is a little bit because the guests become the comedians that are on the Fixing Joe episode. I come up, I do a little monologue about what my issue is. I try to make it as funny as possible. And then I bring the first guest up. He tries to give me advice on it. I ask them to bring a problem. I give them advice on their problem. We go to the audience. The audience that's sitting there in the club gives us advice. And we try to open the lines for you guys to contact us and give us advice. Give me advice. Give the guest advice. Whatever you want to do. But if you want to come out to that show tomorrow night, the Stress Factory, the stand-up show starts at 7:30. If you want to come to that, go to StressFactoryComedyClub.com. I think it's, you know what? It's StressFactory.com. Or to make it easier for you, just go to JoeMatarese.com. And then you can click on it. There's a banner at the top of my website. You could sit in the audience, be there at the live taping, which is really exciting. It's really fun. And then we do the podcast taping right afterwards, and you can be there for that too. Great club, Stress Factory. Okay? And I have to thank somebody huge here at the top. This guy, Larry May. I wonder if he's listening. Larry May made the biggest donation anyone has ever made on the Fixing Joe podcast. From when it started, he just crushed everybody. He sends me this big donation. I'm not going to say numbers. I think it's the day before I went to Arizona with my family. So I send him an email back saying, dude, thank you so much for that really generous donation. It couldn't have come at a more perfect time. I'm leaving tomorrow to go to Scottsdale, Arizona with my wife and kids. We do this every year. We try to go to a warm place on their winter break, and I usually have to work while I'm there. And we make a little vacation out of it. I said, this is great that you sent me this money. The next day, he doubles what he sent me and sends me another donation, doubling what the original donation was, which was a huge donation. His first donation was bigger than anybody has ever sent me, and then he doubles it. So I sent him all the free merch that he gets, and he's just a great guy. He sent me this long email, and through his email, I realized why he is a Fixing Joe fan. I can usually tell people that like my show and why. It's almost like they don't even have to say it in an email. I realize there's either some sort of depression in the family, or there's something ADD related in the person, or maybe their child, or they been on SSRIs and they stopped taking them, or they feel the same way I do. They have a wife and kids, and they're trying to make their life work correctly, and they're trying meds and all these different things. So, Larry, you're the best, man. thank you so much again. Oh, my God. If everybody donated that listened to my podcast what Larry donated, I would be a very successful man. If everybody just did that every month, I'd be doing well. I'd be happy. Because let's face it, doesn't everybody's happiness revolve around money? We try to make it not, but it does. And it sucks that it does. It sucks that it has that power over us. We wish it didn't, right? But it does. Now, if anybody wants to call into this live podcast, I tweeted and Facebooked out the Google Hangouts number, which sucks. It seems to never work right. I'll give it to you. It just, the sound isn't as good. It's 914-246-0238. But if you want it to really sound good, I recommend Skyping in to Matarese67. M-A-T as in Tom, A-R-E-S-E. I have a great guest on the podcast today. I hope he gets my email in time because he got it. I just saw the email. Chris Mancini, who's a comedian that I started with. Oh, my God. He must be the same age as me. Maybe he's a year younger. Maybe he's a year older. I started in 1989 in the Philadelphia area, and Chris did also. He moved to L.A. early on. I remember staying in L.A., and him letting me stay in his house. Jesus, 100 years ago. I think it was my first time ever going to L.A. He let me crash at his house, and he was married, and he might have had his. I don't know how many kids he has because we haven't talked. This is gonna be the first time we've talked in, at least 15 years. He looks the same. I looked him up on the internet. I'm like, the guy looks the same. He was always a really smart guy, and now he does this podcast, and I tweeted it out, and I don't want to get the name wrong. You know me with my ADD. Look, Chris J. Mancini. I think it's called the Film Nerds. Chris J. Mancini. He does this podcast, and I wanted to do his, and he doesn't do Skyping or phone calls or anything like that. So I'd have to be in L.A. when I do it. I keep trying to set up an L.A. trip. I would love to do it, his podcast, and everybody I know that's podcasting, they're all. Oh, look, his website doesn't shrink down to fit a phone. Hey, Chris, you might want to get your website to shrink down and fit a phone. I have it on my phone, and it's just the middle of the website. I wonder if he knows that. I can't get the name of his podcast. What the fuck is it? Be hilarious. Yeah. Well, his website is chrisjmancinionline.com. And I'm pretty sure it's called The Film Nerds. I guess I would be considered a film nerd if you only did like 5 movies. Chris will probably tell me when I interview him. He's going to be FaceTiming me in a couple of minutes if I qualify to being a film nerd. I don't know. If it was the movie Rocky, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Rudy, Field of Dreams. Let's see. What else? What are my other film nerd films? God, Goodfellas. Let's think what else goes up there. I'd have to pull out my DVDs, but definitely High Fidelity. I just love High Fidelity. So, then maybe I would be a film nerd if it was those movies. But I have a feeling Chris probably goes deep. This guy's like he's a screenwriter. He's a television writer. He's written books. He's been in L.A. successfully doing it, which is impressive. L.A. spit me out in about a year and like 4 months, but I think I left more because I didn't want to be single forever. And the girls out there sucked so bad that I was like, I got to get out of here. I'm gonna die. I'm gonna be single till I'm 104 if I live in Los Angeles. So I moved, and then as soon as I came back, met my wife like 2 months later. Boom, year later, basically engaged. So Chris did the smart thing. I bet, I'm guessing, I think he brought his girlfriend maybe, and then they got married out there. But he brought an East Coast girl to Los Angeles. I always tell people, if you can do that, you can last in L.A. a lot longer than a normal comedian can who's single. If you want to try to have a wife and kids and try to mix family with career, if you want to do that, you got to bring a girl from New Jersey, New York, Philadelphia, Washington D.C., Boston. Let's face it. I don't want to alienate some of you people. Comedy film. Ron, I just missed it. It came across my screen for a second. Ron Poliquin, as I call him, super fan. Well, you're super fan number 2, Ron, because Larry May just made a humongous donation, but I have a feeling he makes more than all of us combined. I have a feeling he's very successful because he just that was a crazy donation, and like I said, if everybody did that, I'd be killing it. Ron, did you say comedy film nerds? Did I get it correct? So if you want to Skype in during the show, Skype Matarese67. Okay, podcast is comedy film nerds. Okay, I don't know what I said. Did I say nerd comedy films? Did I dyslex it? I don't know what I did. All right, everybody. What else? What else did I want to talk about this podcast? I guess we should talk about Arizona auditioning for Sebastian. Do you guys know about that? If you follow me on Twitter, you know that that I auditioned for the Sebastian Maniscalco pilot. I had to put myself on tape while I was on vacation. I wish I was able to tweet out the video of my audition. The owner of the club hooked me up. Oh, this is him. This is my guest. So let's take the guest, and I'll explain more after I answer. FaceTime audio.
Hey, Joe. How's it going?
Oh, hey, audio only.
Yes.
I did say audio only, didn't I?
So I wasn't sure. I asked a question. I figure it's a podcast. Chances are it's audio.
It is. For some reason, I don't know if you feel well. You do all in-person interviews on your podcast. I'm sure they're never not there, from what you told me in the email.
Right. Exactly.
What happens is if I can see them somehow, it feels a little less weird as a phone call. But
I feel awkward when I see anyone, so I like the audio.
You know what? Well, I was gonna say with our past, because we're guys that knew each other 100 years ago.
Yeah.
Then it's I've had a few of those kind of interviews where you're like, I haven't seen this guy in 20 years, and now I'm looking at him huge on my computer screen, and we both look old, and you're like, oh God.
Oh, I wish that weren't true. Yeah.
Were you able to listen on wildfireradio.com of what I was talking about? Because I said some things about our past. I don't know if you heard any of it.
Let's just say I may not have.
Okay, good.
And you could refresh my memory.
Well, it wasn't much. All I said is I think the last time I saw you was when you let me stay at your place in L.A.
Yes.
And I think you might have had, I don't know how many kids you have now, but you might have had one kid then?
No, I didn't.
You had no kids.
No kids then. Yeah, it was just me and my, I don't even know if we were married then. It might have been my fiance, or we were married. I don't even remember. But yeah, we didn't have kids until we moved into a house. Okay. You had like a, it wasn't an apartment, but it wasn't a house. It was more like a condo. I remember it had an upstairs and, Yeah, it was a townhouse. It was one of those, yeah. And it was, but it was like, we didn't own it. It was it was an apartment, but it was nice. It was, we were right by the tar pits, Marie Callender's. Perfect location for Los Angeles.
I remember you. That's weird that you said tar pits, because I didn't say that at the top of the podcast, but that is a vivid memory of you explaining to me that we were near tar pits. And I remember, like, I grew up in South Jersey. I'm like, what? Where?
Yeah.
A what? Tar pits. I'm like, what is that?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you grew up in like we did in Philly and Jersey, you realize that. Well, is he talking about the roads? What is he? What is he talking about?
Is it that hot here?
Yeah.
Now, where? Say it again, because now I'm familiar with L.A. over the years. But how long ago was that? Was that more than 15 years ago? Can you remember? How long you been married?
It's got to be at least 15 years because we've been married for about 15. But we lived in that place for a couple years before we were married, so it's got to be between 15 and 20. That how scary is that?
It's weird that it doesn't seem like that long ago. Like,
do you remember when you stayed? The thing that happened to you? My God! I'm still laughing about this. You had never really stayed in L.A. before.
No,
and I knew you were from New York, New Jersey, and I said, now look. You got to be careful crossing the street. They will ticket you for jaywalking here.
Oh, yes.
And you were like, no way. I'm like, I'm telling you, just be careful. And then you went out, you did your meetings, you went your day, and you came back that night, and you looked at me and went, I got a ticket for jaywalking.
I do remember getting a ticket for jaywalking, but I thought it was when I lived in L.A. because I lived there.
No, you got it when you stayed with me the same day I warned you not to get one.
In Burbank, right? Was it Burbank? I remember getting one in Burbank.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I still remember that. And I tried to lie. I tried to pull like a Jersey Italian guy. I was like, I don't have my wallet. I thought that was gonna work, which didn't.
Yeah, it didn't, did it?
No, it didn't. He's like, you don't have a wallet on you, and I totally did, and it was like terrible. And I don't think I ever paid that ticket. It disappeared after like it took a while, and it went up to like $500, $600, $700.
Right. And there's a statute of limitations on jaywalking violations.
I thought for sure they would have done something like ticketed my car later on if I tried to visit.
Or booted your leg.
Yeah. It's funny. It's something you tell every East Coast person when they come to California. Right? You don't think you're going to run across the street because you'll get a $200 ticket. Oh my God.
Yep.
I remember that. I also said at the beginning of the podcast, you did L.A. the smartest way possible, which is you brought a girlfriend from the East Coast there, right?
Actually, no. The first year, because we did a long distance relationship, which was very hard, but we made it work. Was because I needed to decide if I liked it and I wanted to stay there, and then she visited a bunch of times, and then we decided, all right, we'll give it a shot. I mean, it was really kind of one of those like, all right, let's see what happens. So she moved out, and then she got a job right away. When she came out to LA because she's not in the business.
Right.
She's a scientist. Right. So, it's a good mix. I mean, she works to save lives and I tell jokes to drunks. So karmically, it works out.
Well, we have a similar situation. I mean, my wife is a neuropsychologist, so.
Oh, so she gets paid every single week too.
Yeah. my wife does research on Alzheimer's disease. So, I mean, it's kind of like a scientist.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's exactly like a scientist.
Yeah. Now, but so I was almost right, which I said what you did correctly is you were in a relationship already, because if you you never had to be single in LA because it's really sad and hard.
It's not easy, and I saw a lot of my friends kind of go through it and have things self-destruct, and I still see it. Some of my friends are still single, and it gets harder. Especially it gets harder when you're anywhere when you're single and older, but it gets even harder in Los Angeles because everyone has that little bit of crazy that you're not sure is going to turn into a big bit of crazy, and it only shows up 4 months later into a relationship.
I don't think I ever got past like 3 weeks with a girl when I was only there for about a year and 4 months, but.
Well, you were on an accelerated timeline then for the crazy.
Yeah. Well, it was always fascinating to me because I was always the crazy one in my relationships, but all of a sudden it flipped when I moved to LA. I was like, I'm the normal one? This is weird.
Yeah. I'm in bizarro land.
Yeah.
Is this?
Oh my God. I dated like I guess the typical things like the manager's assistant. A lot of guys I know end up dating their manager's assistant or, just not.
Yeah, and that always works out.
I never did. I never went down the comedian road though when I lived in LA. I never dated comics. Thank God. I never liked girl comedians. It seems too manly to me. I don't like a manly girl. Like girl comedians, you ever notice they're very guy-like? You could say anything in front of them, and I don't know.
Yeah, it's like hanging out with a buddy, and oftentimes they will out-dirty you sometimes.
Yeah. Like my wife is easily offended.
Sometimes you can hang out with female comedians, and then like I start blushing. I'm like, I'm feeling uncomfortable here.
Now, I'm guessing you probably have to be the same age as me. Did you start stand-up in Philly in like 89 or 90, somewhere in there?
Let's see. Graduated in 80s. Yeah, about there. About 89, 88, 89. Yeah, because I started right when I started college. Okay. And the first comedian I ever met was Todd Glass, who actually was performing at my college while I was there. Like I was like a freshman.
What did you? So, you approached him and said, "I liked what you did," or did you tell him you wanted to be a comedian?
I didn't. I just said hi, thought you were great, and then thought I would never see him again. It was before I decided I wanted to do it.
Are you friends with him now?
Absolutely. We just saw Todd. I see him periodically. In fact, he's in. We shot a documentary on podcasting, and Todd is in it. So we got to profile him. It's really cool. It's called Earbuds, the podcasting documentary.
I saw it on your website. I saw that.
Yeah. We're just finishing it up, and it'll get released this year. But man, it's what a documentaries take forever.
Oh, I know guys that have done them, and then I've done pieces. I've been in pieces of other people's. It seems like Todd Glass might win the award for being in the most comedy documentaries.
I think, yeah. And this will only add to his collection for sure. Yeah, he's so great on camera too, and he's very serious. He goes into what it was like to come out on a podcast, and to see, because Todd is like. He's like a manic, comic who just goes all over the place all the time. Mm-hmm. But to see him in this documentary focused and serious and talking about things that he really feels strongly about and believes in, it's really a cool departure because you see him funny, but then you also see him, no, there's a real serious guy behind this too.
Yeah, he gets serious. I've had him on my show a few times, and he said something really interesting to me, and I wonder if he said it in your movie. Because I think it was when I first started podcasting and the Fixing Joe format, I opened myself up and I asked for advice. And I told him, everybody's podcasting and everybody makes fun of you for podcasting because everybody's doing it. And Todd goes, well, everybody's doing stand-up too, and we do stand-up. And it was like a perfect thing to say. I go, yeah, you're right. There's a million of us doing stand-up, but we do it. Like he's like, if you like podcasting and you have an interesting angle, do it, And
there's no quota that needs to be filled on podcasting. It's like, all right, we're done. We don't need any more. It's like bands, it's any art form. It's bands, it's like, what are you going to tell? Like, like Death Cab for Cutie. Sorry, we already have enough bands. You can't be a band anymore. It's meaningless. The one flip side to that, though, is it's like doing a podcast just to do a podcast. That I disagree with. If you want to do a podcast, but don't do it just because everyone else is doing it. Do it because you have something to say and you want to actually express yourself.
Sure. Well, one of the reasons I started my podcast and what's so great about it, and you realize that all of show business has become this now, which is I had an idea that I wanted to do, and it was always wrapped around like a TV show, I was like, I want to do a sitcom where I'm a radio guy who seeks advice from the callers. And I always wanted to do a sitcom about that. And then I heard one podcast and I was like, I can just do it. I can just do it.
Yeah.
I don't need to do a show about it. I can do it. I don't need the show. Let's see.
No one needs permission to be on the internet.
Yeah, that's great. What did you learn in the documentary about podcasting? Is there anything you learned that you didn't know or that you discovered?
What we did is we kind of had some hints of what we were going to expect, but what happened was as we were shooting, a lot more threads kind of emerged. Like what we wanted, we didn't want to do like a history of podcasting and just interview like Mark Maron. Yeah, podcasting is great, blah, blah, blah. So what we did instead was we focused on the personal connection between the podcaster and the fan. So a lot of the documentary is actually the fans and how they interact and react to the podcasters.
Okay.
So, and we actually shot all over the world. We went to Australia and Japan to interview fans. So we opened it up really worldwide. And one of the things that we did notice was there was a lot of people that are kind of closed off and have certain mental illnesses or mental issues. Podcasting, it was their window to the world and actually helped give them comfort and make them feel better, like they weren't as alone. And that was something that was also humbling because, we're making jokes into a microphone, into our computers. We don't make that connection that, maybe we're really helping someone through a tough time or whatever. And that was a couple things. First of all, it makes what we do worthwhile, even when we're not making any money. And it also was very humbling that we're actually, in a weird way, kind of helping in a small way. So That was the one thing that really resonated, especially with us, just as we were shooting.
And I've actually said that about stand-up. I don't think I said it in a documentary, but I've said it to like interview. When someone's interviewing me, I've said the best moments. They go, "What's the best moment?" And I always say it's that moment when someone comes up to you and says, like, "My dad died yesterday or 2 days ago. You made me forget about it for 90 minutes and you made me crack up and thank you so much." Like those are the moments. And yeah, you realize that so you're saying that would you say the bigger population of people that are a little socially off are the ones listening to podcasts the most or no?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a cross section. The thing about podcasting is, people ask, what's the demographic of podcasting? And it's, you can't even answer that because it's everyone. It's, we've interviewed everyone from, retired school teachers to college kids. It's an emerging medium that everyone's kind of gravitating towards what they like and what they want. The one thing that's definitely was a common thread is that it means something personal to people, even if you're not having issues with mental illness or whatever. If you're just enjoying a show, you're connecting with that more than the way you're connecting with a TV or a TV show or a movie, because it's very, very personal, even more personal than radio. You feel like you're being talked directly to. And one of the reasons too is we're unfiltered. It's basically eavesdropping on a conversation. I mean, we barely edit our shows unless someone says something crazy. I doubt you do much editing on your show.
No, yeah, only when someone asks you to, or you realize you might have burned a bridge and said something too honest.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, we have a system now for Graham and I for Comedy Film Nerds. We look at each other and write down the time code.
That's a good idea.
I'll edit after the guest leaves. So
you just look at each other and write it down.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I wish I was that in tune to know to do that. I do usually remember what I said, and I probably should write it down. This is new to me, this going live thing. I've only been doing this for like a month.
How do you like it?
It's odd. Literally the first, the listeners couldn't tell. I tried to hide it, but literally like the first 3 minutes of my podcast, GarageBand was saying you have no audio inputting. So it was recording nothing, but I could tell by this app that's on my phone that allows it to stream live on Wildfire Radio was streaming, because it shows me a time count on it. So I knew I was being heard, but I wasn't recording. So I had to and then talk at the same time. It's like I had to talk like a radio guy talks and keep my story going as I'm trying to click around the preferences and get it to record.
Well, don't you have a staff of producers helping you?
It's funny. I've had interns in the past. I had an intern who was like, I called him my producer, but I used to say to him, like, you live in Bucks County. Like the stuff I would really need a producer for, like I need you right next to me when we're recording, and I don't know, or I don't know how do you go about booking your guests. Do you have a team at all?
We have we started with interns, and now we're at the point now where we kind of hire like some part-time help here and there. Mm-hmm. But what we really need is a full-time person. Because we do so much, we just have the we don't just have the podcast. We have a giant online store. We have the website, and we have movie reviews being written by people, and then we have a book and the feature and all that stuff. So it's kind of like a company where a podcast is part of it, but it is the anchor to everything that we do. So we have someone to come in and kind of help out with everything, but. We find that you don't want to overload anybody, whether it's an intern or a part-time person. You can have like one person produces the show for you, and then you have one person doing social media. This way, if you're using interns, you don't overload anyone. Right. Everybody can kind of give like 5 to 10 hours a week, but we found that sometimes when we wanted to try to have an intern do everything, they would only stick around for a week or two.
Yeah, I had a lot of those bail or go back to school. They go back to school at the end of the summer.
Yeah. Or they go back to school in the middle of July, and you go, wait a minute, you're not in school. Like, oh, gotta go, bye.
This sucks. I'm working for free. See you later.
Yeah.
What was I have? God, now that
I don't need free improv tickets. Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, that's always the sale too. At the top, I go, you can hang with me.
Yeah,
you can come to my spots in New York City and just kind of watch. Now that I have you on, I'm realizing that this is probably what this episode's going to be about. I have so many questions. Here's another question: is how to build the fan base, and why I'm asking you that, and something that I didn't talk about yet on the podcast is I talked to 2 publicists today, and I've been thinking about hiring a publicist, and they're expensive. I mean, from being in LA, I mean, I found some reasonable ones that aren't the super high-end kind, which usually means they don't have as many contacts. They're not going to be as good as the $5,000 a month publicist. But I'm wondering, because what I'm trying to do right now, and I don't know if this came up in I'm sure it came up in the documentary, is these guys, how do I build my fan base, and how do I, what makes me stand out, and how does it start to, blossom?
Well, what I could also do is refer you to the LA Podfest podcast feed. Mm-hmm. We actually record all of the panels and stuff like that with audience growth and with people that are kind of more into it than I am, because they're people that run the networks and the advertising and all that stuff. But I could tell you one thing about publicists: it's a great job, because all you have to do is take someone's money and not guarantee any results.
Oh yeah,
it's the best job ever.
And sometimes do nothing.
Yeah. It's like you can't even do that with a baker. Well, I'll give you $1 for a donut, and I may or may not make you that donut. So
I know.
So a publicist is really a crapshoot. If you get a good one and they get it in front of the right journalist, and you have a giant piece written in the New York Times, then great. But it's like you're rolling dice. Sometimes you're better off working through social media and possibly buying ads on Twitter or these places, and then to actually build your followers on Twitter, and then that translates into podcast listeners. The other thing you do a lot is you go on other podcasts, you have different guests on yours. That's the basic cross-pollinization. Go on as many different ones as you can, and have as many different guests as you can on yours.
Once again, that's what sucks about being in New York. For some reason, a lot of us aren't doing it here, and
it's true. It's a Southern California, LA kind of thing right now. Still,
I'm on All Things Comedy, which is Bill Burr and Al Madrigal's.
That's
channel.
That's what we're on.
You're
that's
on
what
it too.
Comedy Film Nerds is on. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody that's on that channel, you were the only one out of almost all of them. But you know what? I'm wrong. You came on my show. They all come on my show. But every one of them says, I can't have you on unless you're here in L.A. Like, that's what they all say. And,
right.
It's got to the point. I remember it was a joke. Like 3 years ago, someone made a joke, said, hey, I went to L.A. for podcast season. Like, that was the joke.
That's pretty funny.
But now it's true. Like, you got to book a week to go do a bunch of podcasts.
Well, what I would recommend, and this is what you guys know, Keith and the Girl is in New York. They're also in the documentary. But what they did is when we programmed them at LA Podfest, they came in a couple weeks out. They did literally a tour. They did all the podcasts, did the festival, did a couple comedy shows, and then went back to New York. They maximized all the time that they had here. So it's definitely, as crazy as it sounds, people are doing that. That right now.
Well, it worked, especially for a comedian. Like I just did on Valentine's Day weekend. But Valentine's Day came on a Sunday this year. I did a theater in the town I grew up in for the first time ever in my forever comedy career. I was like, let me try to do a theater, and just promote the shit out of it myself. I'm going to do every darn podcast there is, and I'm going to do a little bit of radio in the Philly market, and then try to get a newspaper article written, which I did, and it worked. But and I sold it out, so now I'm going to try to do more of these little theaters down in that area down there, because you can kind of go 30 miles each way, and the radio stations down there still hit it. But here's
the best thing about that, Joe. Creatively, you're performing to a sold-out crowd that's there to see you.
It was amazing.
They're not going to, quote, comedy club and wondering who they're going to see.
Yeah.
That's the most creative, rewarding thing is when people come out, they know what to expect. You've already won them over before you get there.
Yeah. I called my agents and I said, listen, this is all I want to do. I don't even think I want to go, because they can't even get me in these clubs. Half of these clubs say no. They don't care. It's weird. And
you've been on America's Got Talent.
But 5 years ago, they would just kind of, you had a reputation and they'd bring you in. And things have changed in the last, I'd say even 3 years. It's just every year it gets harder and harder, unless, even 50,000 Twitter followers is like a joke to them. They don't care. You got to have hundreds of thousands and be able to really... once again, it gets harder at a comedy club because I sold out 350 seats on a Saturday, but if I go to a comedy club that seats 300 people, I got to do 5 or 6 shows. I mean, that's a lot more people. I'd rather just consolidate it into one show. Yeah.
And here's the other thing too: you're not making all that money for someone else.
Yeah. I made triple what I make at a comedy club, and I was
of course.
And then I tried, I never really did the live podcast in front of the audience, but I did it at Stand Up Scottsdale last week on the Sunday night, and all of a sudden I was like, I usually hate listening to podcasts where there's an audience there, because people like this intimacy, the long form interview, all that. But you know what? I was like, I think I kind of like this better. Maybe it's because I don't do it a lot.
We love our live shows.
We
absolutely love doing a Comedy Film Nerds live. And what you'll find is that you'll have a different vibe for your live show. It took us a little while to figure it out, but what we do is we make it more of a presentation, like we do movie trailers and games, and really make it like a cool, fun live show and guests. And a lot of podcasts, they just find their thing. Some of them do exactly what they do on the show, and that's fine. Other ones do a completely different show live than they do in the studio, and there's no rules. You could do whatever you want. That's what's great about it.
Yeah. What I did that made it work better, I thought, than sometimes doing it this way, is that the guests got to do 7-minute stand-up sets. We did a 45-minute stand-up show, and then we did an hour-long podcast taping after the stand-up show. But what made it great is they're talking about their issues and what they need help with, but now they saw them do stand-up, so they kind of know who they are a little bit, so it made it funnier and more fun when they were revealing shit about themselves,
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember I had pitched a show years ago where we shot this little mini pilot at Caroline's, and it was called What's So Funny? That was the name of the show, and it was basically it was Jim Norton and Artie Lang. They did stand up, but with a doctor, a psychologist on stage taking notes, And then, and then him and I were the hosts. Like, it was kind of like Love Lines, like the comedian and the doctor. And we interviewed the comedian with his notes and like psychoanalyzed them. And it was funny because the crowd's there. Comedians just naturally go for the funny. We know how to do it, you know? So, and then the audience gets to ask questions too, but
and then every comedian after that show went home and cried into their pillow.
It was fun. Artie Lang, actually, Howard Stern liked it so much because I think he got to see it somehow, Artie's portion, and he aired Artie's portion on when back in the day, Howard Stern used to do the what did they call it? When they had like a channel where you could watch the Howard Stern show, not when it was on E. When it was on satellite radio. I guess it was called, why am I stuck with this? It wasn't Howard 101. It was called like, I don't know what they had a channel. I don't remember why the fuck. I never paid for it.
I believe you.
but they aired it on there. So yeah, okay. So yeah, the publicist it doesn't sound like it's a definite thing here.
Yeah, the publicist is it's a gamble. It's, it could work out great or it could be a waste of money. It's one of those unknowns. It's a dice throw. If you get a really good referral, somebody goes, this guy's great, they'll take care of you, that might be good, but you just never know.
And how many episodes a week do you guys do on yours?
We do between 1 and 2. We do a regular episode, then sometimes we do a spoiler or a special episode where we'll go through a movie from top to bottom and analyze it, including the ending. So we tell people this is a spoiler ep for like, Hail Caesar or whatever, and then we go into it. Like it's basically an episode you listen to after you've seen the film or if you have no intention of seeing the film. That's the other reason people listen to it. So we do about 1 to 2 a week. So probably about average about 6 a month.
Okay. Do you ask for donations and all that kind of stuff?
We do all sorts of different things. Like we have a full online store but we don't just sell Comedy Film Nerds products. We sell products from like a lot of different podcasters and comedians. So we carry all of Dana Gould's merchandise, Thrilling Adventure Hour. So we kind of open that up to the other comedians as a service, and we make some money from that.
Oh, that's cool.
And also we do ad reads. That's the other way we make money. And occasionally people donate, but mainly we like to have people just buy something in the store, so they're kind of getting a little bit of something for their money.
Yeah, well,
instead of just handing us cash. Although we did ask for a fair amount of money for the movie, so we're not going to be asking for donations for a long time. And we raised $140,000 on Kickstarter. So
and it was all podcast listeners that gave. It
was all podcast listeners and podcasters too. Podcasters stepped up and also helped fund that film.
Can you say what your biggest donation out of any podcast listener was? Without saying a name?
No, I can say a name. That's fine. Kickstarter caps everything at 10,000, so that's as high as you could go. Doug Benson put in 10,000.
Wow. He's kicking ass at podcasting, huh? Jeez, it's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Podcasting, live shows, and he's really a guy that's kind of figured out every little niche of the of the internet for sure.
And who gets your ads for you? Do you? Because All Things Comedy doesn't seem to be bringing. I don't know what their deal is over there. They're like, yeah, we got some ads, and then you don't hear anything. What's going on?
We get our ads from a couple different places. We have one dedicated ad rep that happened to be a childhood friend of Graham's, so that kind of helped us out in a unique way.
Yeah.
But the other places, All Things Comedy does get us some ads. Sorry.
They do. Well, you're out.
Yeah,
I think this business is all about FaceTime. It's like I'm talking to these people on the phone. They're all in California.
Right.
You're probably do you record in their studio ever?
No, we just do it in the garage. But the other place we get ads from is the hosting company. We're with Libsyn.
So am I.
And occasionally an ad comes through from them, but they're the lowest paying ones, but they still show up every once in a while.
Right.
So the thing I found about advertising is that there's no one place you get all your ads. Like 1 month you'll get a lot from one place and you'll get nothing from somewhere else, and then it'll reverse or whatever. But the best thing I could tell you for that is have somebody start to research these companies and approach them directly to try to get like an ad deal for a couple months here and there.
That's what I had told my producer. I said, listen, because I'm about to sign with a company that's going to get me ads, but they take they take 30%. So I said to him, before they start, go make cold calls. I go, how hard could I go? The companies. You're a podcast fan. It's it's audible.com. It's flowers.com. It's stamps.com. We know the companies. Call them.
Squarespace deals directly with podcasters. Yeah,
really?
there's a lot of companies that'll deal directly. Some of them will only go through ad agencies like Audible, but there's a mix. And here's the thing: there's new companies coming online all the time that want to get into the space. So there's plenty of places. I mean, we've had advertisers from just who create apps, and they've advertised on a couple of episodes. Yeah,
I've had those guys.
Yeah, so whether the app works or not, it doesn't matter.
Well, sometimes you wonder if you should promote your own podcast on another podcast. Like I started hearing that. People are placing on Marin's podcast. You'll hear a commercial for, who was it that I just heard that just started a podcast and he promoted it on Marin? I was like,
Yep. We've had that too, where people like a new podcaster will say, and we do a sliding scale kind of thing. If you're an indie guy, an artist, like a comic book artist or a podcaster, we don't charge the same rate as like, a Squarespace.
Okay. Well, I'm learning as much from talking to you as these guys that are running major ad companies. I feel like they don't even know because it's so new. They're like, they just guess and say shit. I'm like, you don't know.
Yeah. Anyone, that old quote about the movie business. Anybody who tells you that they know everything is full of shit.
That's true. So we'll talk a little bit about issues. I'm curious because I haven't seen you in a long time. Is there? If I had to say to you, is there anything you would like to discuss where you think you could use some advice? Anything? It could be something minimal or it could be something deep. Anything you struggle with?
Yeah, you know what? Most of my struggles have been career-wise, like especially for I've been kind of without an agent and a manager for a while, and I'm trying to get back into writing. I mean, I'm a published author. I've written for TV shows and movies and stuff, but I'm kind of in a slump right now. So it's one of the things I'd like to actually get back more into is into writing. So if you're a showrunner and if you can hire me,
it's funny because I just sent an email out to one of my favorite. He might be the favorite showrunner of all time, and a friend of mine had him. Well, Steve Cooper, who you know.
Yeah, of course.
Steve Cooper had him on his radio show and said how great of a guy he was and that he'd do your podcast, and he gave me his email and told him about me, and I sent him an email today, and I'm praying he gets back to me. Is Phil Rosenthal.
From Everyone Loves Raymond.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever read his, he has this book called How to Turn Your Life into a Sitcom, and it's so good, and I tell every comedian you should basically read this book. I mean, it really the one major note is and every comedian knows this, but sometimes it takes us 25 years to realize it. The more specific we are, the funnier it is. You can be so specific about your own life, and it translates as funny to everybody. And it takes you years to find that out.
I think that's 100% true. One of the things that got me actually back on track a couple years ago is when I had my first child. I was really freaked out about it. And I wasn't sure what was going on. I was so scared to be a dad. I was reading these parenting books, and none of them were helping me. So I wrote one. I wrote one to help a guy who was scared about being a dad to become a dad. And it's called Pacify Me, a handbook for the freaked out new dad. And I made it very specific and very personal. I was like, I've never really written like this before. And I got an agent, and it went to Simon & Schuster and got bought on the first submission.
Really?
So, and it was like, maybe I should be getting a little more personal. And then I started developing it as a show. We went and pitched it out. It got pretty close to like CBS, but then it didn't sell. So, but then, what happens with a lot of agents and managers, and, they send stuff out to one place, it doesn't sell, and then everyone loses interest. So it's a heat-seeking market. You're hot for like a few seconds, and then oh yeah, we're on to the next thing.
Oh yeah, was that something that you want to do? Is write for a sitcom, or did you like writing books better?
You know what? I just love the art of writing so much that I've enjoyed writing on shows. I've enjoyed writing on movies, and I've really enjoyed writing the book too. In fact, I've been trying to get kind of like a sequel to the book published, but I haven't been able to yet. But I'm still working on it. It's about, when your children get older and you have, like, how old are your kids?
I have an 8-year-old son and a 4-year-old daughter.
Oh, 8-year-old, 4-year-old. Okay, yeah, I have an 11 and a 7, so okay. They're slightly ahead, but that's not by much.
Not much, and you've been married longer than me, so you waited a while to have kids.
Oh, I did. Yeah, I put it off for as long as I could. So yeah, the title of the second book is "I'm Gonna Either Eat It or Break It," because that's what toddlers do. But I've been just working on that, and just one of the things that happened is I kind of got into podcasting, which I've really enjoyed, but it takes time to build up a company and run it, and it's kind of taken time away from writing, which I'm trying to get kind of course correct and get back into now.
Yeah, I mean, writing is one of those things. I remember I had a development deal years and years ago, probably after I hung at your apartment with NBC, and that's what moved me to L.A., because I thought I was one of those guys that thought I had to be there because I want to write the pilot with the showrunner. I don't want to be emailing him. It's like, it was the stupidest. I think it was one of my biggest mistakes, because I could have had all that money on the East Coast and continued to perform and make money, but I moved to L.A. and then just ate through it very fast.
Right.
And then as soon as the show never got filmed,
that's weird.
Yeah. And I think I'm having a deja vu. I think we may have hung out once after I hung at your apartment, like maybe another time when I went to L.A.
It's entirely possible.
I think we did.
For sure.
I don't know
Met
why.
Somewhere at the Improv or something.
Something with like Paul Tompkins or something. I don't know why I'm thinking of that. Because I remember you doing, you know what? I saw you do stand-up somewhere. And I remember a joke about you saying it's about 30 minutes. That was like your joke. Things you were sick of saying in L.A.
Right.
I don't know why I remember. I don't remember where that was. It's about 30 minutes.
I think I remember that bit too. Yeah. It's like you're always saying it's about 30 minutes away. And, hey, sorry I missed your show. That was the other thing.
And then you had the, I'm really glad for you. That was the Yeah, but oh God, yeah. So I thought I had to write it, but I remember how fun that was trying to write a pilot and all that kind of shit. So I can imagine if you're in LA. That's what was hard about LA too. Is if you want to be a TV writer, it can be heartbreaking because you're so close to all the studios. You're watching people left and right do what you want to do.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely, it's exciting and incredibly disheartening sometimes at the same time, depending on how your day is going. I remember walking onto the Sony lot to be interviewed as a director for one of Adam Sandler's films. Uh-huh. And this was like, it was just a cool feeling. It was the first time I'd gotten discovered from a film festival, one of my short films, and I'm walking into a giant studio lot being interviewed to direct a film. And it was like one of those moments that this is the first time this has ever happened. You always remember kind of that first, oh my God, this is kind of what I've always wanted. And now I'm here, I'm on the lot. So I never directed an Adam Sandler movie. It didn't work out, but just that moment of walking on the lot, being interviewed as a director was amazing.
Oh God, I can imagine. I just remember being on those sitcom stages. That's something that still lives inside me as the one thing that I just want to do more than anything. Like I even texted Steve Cooper. I said, he's my about Phil Rosenthal. I said he's what did I say? He's my dream showrunner to have for the dream show I want to do. Like he's the guy. I don't know why, because I somehow I've always compared myself to Ray Romano. I don't know why. I've always found a lot of similarities. I'm a fan of his. I think he's like a subtle, great actor that like people don't even like probably even look at as a great actor. And I just think he's so good at it that it doesn't look like he's doing anything. One of those kind of guys.
Oh, yeah. It's like David Duchovny. He's always going to play Fox Mulder no matter what he's doing.
Yeah. They're just, it's just like no work at all to do it.
Right. It's like, yeah, I get it. You're in Californication, but you're still Fox Mulder.
So your issue is you want to write again, really. You want to get out of the writing slump.
Yes.
Oh, now I remember why I brought up the L.A. and the show. I just remember it was because this guy's name was Matt Wickline. He was the showrunner for the pilot I had, and he said that he used to put a sticker on his computer that said "sit down and write," because that's the hardest. But that you have to just sit down and write every day, no matter what. You have to do it. So and then shit starts to happen, but you got to actually fucking turn your computer on. Like you gotta.
It's good advice.
I mean, that's probably what every writer tells the other person. But I mean, I guess if you don't have an idea for a story, it's hard to sit down and write.
Yeah. I mean, I've always had. That's never been a problem with me. I'm very prolific. I always have ideas and stories, and I've got like 2 other screenplays I'm trying to sell right now. I actually sold a screenplay from a play date. That's the great thing about being in LA to go to.
Oh, you're going to depress me on that one.
Yeah. Oh no! When I tell you the story, you will not be depressed for sure. You will feel sorry for me.
Let's hear it.
I had a play date, and I said, as a writer, and I write comedy. I also write horror scripts. And there was a casting director. And he said, I work for this small company after dark, but they get distributed by Lionsgate. I'll send a script over. So I sent a script over. They liked it. They bought it, and they were going to shoot it in. And I was like, oh, great. Well, can I direct it? And like, well, we'll interview to direct it, and we'll see what happens. I said, okay. So I went in. I brought in storyboards, concepts. I was ready to direct this movie. I had everything ready to go. I even had a list of people that I would hire and all this stuff. And it was called Asylum, and it's about a SWAT team that goes in to investigate demonic possession in an insane asylum. So that's the hard story. Okay. So they say no, and I said, okay. So they go to Bulgaria. They shoot this movie with a Bulgarian director. I don't hear anything it's not a small movie. It's like 1.4 million. So they spend money on it. Right. The trailer comes out. I said, okay, it's not what I would have done, but at least I have a feature film done. So they call me and they say, hey, we need to meet with you. I said, why? He goes, well, let's meet. And then they go, but we need to meet you at a bar. I said, why can't we meet in the office? I said, we'll explain at the bar. I said, okay. So I meet them at a bar. They start buying me drinks, and they go to me. They said, the producer that took your script to Bulgaria went rogue, threw your script away, shot 80 minutes of footage that makes no sense. Now we have nothing to deliver to Lionsgate. Can you fix it for us?
What? What?
That's what I said. I said, what?
He just started shooting. What did he shoot? What did he do?
Well, apparently not one page of my script after I saw the footage. So here's the thing. Then I said, I don't even know. There's nothing I can do. I said, well, it came out so bad. Can you make it a comedy? I said, maybe. So, okay.
By what? Like, what does he mean? Like, would he cut the whole movie or get rid of all that and rewrite it? I don't.
That's what I wasn't sure of. So I said, we started discussing like, well, I don't even know how I would do this. And they said, we have a little bit more money. You could shoot some wraparounds and new footage. I said, okay, let me think about it. So I saw it and I came back to them and I said, the only way I could make this into a comedy is if I shot behind the scenes wraparound footage of how a low budget horror company destroys a movie as it's being made. And then we can have editors actually watch the footage and Mystery Science Theater jokes underneath it.
Right.
So basically making fun of them for what they did.
Right.
Surprisingly, they said yes.
So why is this isn't a negative story?
It is.
Okay.
Hold on.
No. All right.
So I call up a bunch of my buddies. I call up a comedian, Mike Schmidt. I call up Dean Haglund from the X-Files, and we fly down to They wouldn't let me shoot in L.A. because there was some weird flim-flammy thing they wanted to shoot in Baton Rouge. So I said, okay. So we shot in Baton Rouge, and they were hammering me on the budget so much that in order for me to get Dean Haglund, who is a professional actor from the X-Files and was acting for many, many years, I had to give up my rental car so they would pay for his hotel.
Oh, my God.
So we start shooting, and I bang it out in 2.5 days. So I got all my wraparounds, it's all together, and I start putting the director's cut together. They're giving me, the crew was great, but, the producers are like looking at me like, this is costing too much and you're almost done and all this stuff. And then my favorite part was they went behind my back to the rest of the cast and they said, we really love what Dean is doing, because Dean Haglund is a professional improviser and he was really lighting up the scenes and doing great. Right. And they didn't understand what improv was, so they just told the other actors to just say whatever you want. Yes, that's what improv is. It doesn't match the character, it doesn't match the scene, it doesn't match the action, it doesn't drive the story forward. They're just saying whatever they want. And it was a fight to actually get actors down there because they thought, well, funny is funny. We'll just use an improv troupe in New Orleans. Because that's all you need. Every comedian is interchangeable, right, Joe? So I shot it. I got it the best thing I could. I got a director's cut together. I thought it would be kind of a cool Mystery Science Theater thing, would retitle it Death of a Horror Movie so people would know, and then I turned it in. The one good thing I did on the deal is, because they didn't want to pay me, is that I got the rights back to my original script, which was good. So I don't hear from anything. That was the deal. They were like, "Oh, we don't have any more money to pay you." I'm like, "You know what? Then you're giving me back the rights to my script so I can actually make it properly next time." So they agreed to that. So I can actually make a proper horror movie next time. But then what they did is they stopped contact with me. The movie came out without even me knowing about it. The podcast fans told me they discovered it. They found it. And they never rebranded it. They still called it Asylum, to trick the horror fans into actually watching it, not knowing that it was a horror comedy. So it's out there and they cut out half the jokes because they said they didn't test well. And that's when I know I called bullshit, because there's no way they would have paid for it to be tested. It was one of those things where the interns didn't get some of the jokes the comedians were making, so they just dropped them out. So instead of having a joke that maybe half the people will get, there's now like dead air in half the places, which is exactly what you want. So I said that, I made lemonade twice. They made lemons 3 times. So this movie, it exists. It shouldn't, but it exists. You can actually see Asylum. It's on demand. Lionsgate actually released it. So there's a movie that exists that is a hybrid of horror, comedy. It has myself, Dean Haglund, Mike Schmidt, and Stephen Rea, the guy from The Crying Game, in it, and a bunch of bald Bulgarians pretending to be a SWAT team.
And you got paid nothing?
Well, I got paid for the original script. I kept that money. Yeah, but I didn't get paid to fix it. But right. I got the I got the rights back, so it was worth it to me because now I can actually make it properly. All
right, let's end with this, because I had this debate with Artie Lang recently on this movie, and he swore he was right, and I swear I'm right. Now, you know the movie well, right? Martin Scorsese, the king of comedy. You know it very well.
Right.
Right. Now, the ending of the movie, when Robert De Niro is in the bar, and he watches the stand-up set that he did, and the cops grab him and arrest him and put his, and take him away, and he says to the cops something, I don't remember exact words what he says to the cops, but basically he's like looking at them like, wasn't I great? And the cops go, that was terrible, and like they like arrest him, right? And then that voiceover starts, and they show kind of his career, the end of the movie.
Vaguely. I haven't seen it for a long time. But
my take on that movie is Robert De Niro was delusional as Rupert Pupkin, and he thought he had a good set. He didn't. He just thought he did, and that voiceover was like a delusional thought process in that guy's head. He didn't really go on the Jerry Langford show and do amazing. Like, that was in his fucking mind. I don't know why. That's how I take that ending. Do you?
I think they definitely broadcasted the set. Yeah, I think he was on there.
I'm not saying he didn't perform, though. Yeah,
right.
But I don't think it went well. I just think he thinks it went well.
No, but I think it was also, if we get a little technical, little inside baseball-y, is the way that the media and also, networks manipulate and show everything. It doesn't matter that he was a shitty comic and that he was delusional. When you're on TV under that spotlight and you have a live audience or laugh track, they can make you look good no matter how horrible you actually are. So I think that was part of kind of the message that everything is kind of fake, what you see on television.
So is that what did you think the voiceover? Because the voiceover comes on and makes it look like he had this like stellar career and everything, and then they show him in some lounge, and then it like freeze frames, so you kind of have this weird ending feeling, like you're not sure.
I think that was in his head too, for sure. I think it was a delusion, but it also was up for interpretation. Like, is bad publicity? There is no bad publicity. Is that something when he got out of prison? Because today, like with reality stars and shows, it's it doesn't. You don't need any talent. People will plaster you all over TV and magazines and headlines. So I think that end of that movie, I think it was his delusions, that in his head he was doing all these things, and he might have even been sitting in reality in a prison cell. I think it was deliberately vague. Like, you had to kind of interpret how that movie actually ended.
Yeah, it was.
So I think those are some possibilities. But I agree with you. I think my interpretation was that it was delusion.
Yeah, that's what. That's the way I feel too. That it's one of those movies they wanted you to leave going, well, I'm not sure. Like, they wanted it to be a conversation.
Exactly. Yeah. There's people that are going to have a different view, and then it sparks debate for sure.
I'm trying to think of another movie in the last 5 years that was like people were unsure on the ending. There was something I saw, and I can't remember what that is. Something big. There was like a big blockbuster that had a you could take it either way ending, and I can't remember what the fuck it was. Sorry, listeners. I'm not
sure
a nerd.
I also own the film that you're talking about, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
You probably own it. It's something that it might have either was up for an Oscar or won the Oscar.
It had this guy who did that thing, and then we didn't know.
Well, dude, thanks for calling into the podcast. I thought people would have called. Knowing the way I had it set up, my phones aren't set up the correct way, or because I'm talking to you on FaceTime, it's blocking everything from working on that. I have two things hooked up: my iPad with the Skype and my phone hooked up with the Google Hangouts number, and I have a feeling something's blocking the other, or my Wi-Fi's terrible. Who the fuck knows? That's what's great about doing a live podcast, having a late time slot too. We just kept going because we went past the hour. But thanks for doing the podcast, and I guess you would like to just plug your podcast. All right. So the Comedy Film Nerds, they could find that on allthingscomedy.com. I'm sure on iTunes.
Yes. Yep, comedyfilmnerds.com, iTunes, and Twitter, Comedy Film Nerds, and then my personal Twitter is Chris J. Mancini.
All right, Chris, dude. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And if I want to come out and do yours when I come out to LA.
You have an open invitation, Joe, and it was great catching up with you. We haven't talked in many years.
Yeah, tell your wife I'll never forget those days going up your steps.
I will indeed.
All right, man. See you later.
Take care, Joe. Bye-bye.
Bye. Come tomorrow night to the Stress Factory, guys. Go to stressfactory.com if you want to buy tickets to that live podcast. We'll be doing it there. 8:30 is the podcast time. The live stand-up show starts at 7:30. You buy the ticket to that, and you stay for both. The stand-up show is only for like 45 minutes long. We go right into the podcast. Should be a great time. New Brunswick, New Jersey, stressfactory.com. What else should I plug? Should I plug some dates? Why not come and see me live, everybody? This Saturday, I'll be in Hasbrook Heights, New Jersey. I'll be at Bananas Comedy Club. That's February 27th. February 11th and 12th, the Dead Crow Comedy Club in Wilmington, North Carolina. And then May 18th and 19th, brand new club called Ha in Yonkers, New York, 7 minutes from my house, inside the Ridge Hill amazing high-end mall there. It's like an outdoor mall over there in the Yonkers area. And then the 24th, 25th, and 26th of March, I'll be at Laugh Boston in Boston, Massachusetts. As I end every podcast, I hope by me trying to fix me, I help you fix you a little bit. Love my wife. I love my kids. And keep downloading these podcasts, everybody. Love you guys for listening. And one more time, a shout out to the man, Larry May, for those huge donations. You turned my trip into a way better trip to Arizona. Okay? Thanks, dude. I appreciate it. Fuckers, come out tomorrow night, Thursday, Stress Factor. All right? See you later. Have a great one.